The starship Eclipse drifted silently through the void, its sleek metallic hull reflecting the faint light of a distant sun. Inside, the crew of 6 aliens and 1 human worked tirelessly to maintain the ship's systems, chart their course, and keep their fragile alliance intact. But today the tension was thicker than the vacuum outside. "Human Steve," hissed Xyloth, the ship's reptilian engineer, his forked tongue flicking in irritation. "Your primitive methods are slowing us down again. Why do you insist on using that wrench when the molecular stabilizer is clearly malfunctioning?" Steve, the lone human aboard, wiped the sweat from his brow and glared at Xyloth. "Because, genius, the stabilizer isn't malfunctioning. The power coupling is fried. Again. And guess what? Your fancy tools can't fix that. Only good old-fashioned elbow grease can." Xyloth's scales rippled in frustration, a sign of his growing agitation. "Elbow grease? What is this nonsense? You humans and your absurd idioms. Why do I even bother with you?" Steve sighed, tightening the last bolt on the coupling. "Yeah, Xyloth. Why do you bother with me? Maybe because without me, this ship would have fallen apart 3 jumps ago. Or did you forget who fixed the hyperdrive when it overloaded? Or who recalibrated the life support system when it started pumping methane instead of oxygen? Oh wait, that was me too." The other crew members, a towering insectoid named Crix, a gelatinous blob called Glorb, and 3 avian siblings collectively known as the triplets, exchanged uneasy glances. They had grown accustomed to Steve's outbursts, but this one felt different. There was a sharp edge to his voice, a simmering frustration that had been building for weeks. Crix, the ship's navigator, clicked his mandibles nervously. "Steve, perhaps we should." "Don't Steve me, Crix," the human snapped, throwing his wrench into the tool chest with a loud clang. "I've had it up to here with all of you. You treat me like I'm some kind of caveman, but every time something goes wrong, who do you call? Me. And you know what? I'm done. Done fixing your mistakes. Done putting up with your condescension. Done pretending like I'm the problem here." Glorb oozed forward, his translucent form shimmering with concern. "Steve, we appreciate your contributions. Truly we do. But your methods are unconventional. Surely you can understand why we might be hesitant to rely on them." Steve laughed bitterly. "Unconventional? You mean effective? You know, back on Earth we had a saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But you guys, you're always trying to improve things and half the time you just make them worse. And then I have to come in and clean up the mess. Well, guess what? I'm not your janitor." The triplets chirped in unison, their melodic voices blending into a harmonious plea. "Steve, please. We need you. The ship needs you." Steve crossed his arms, his jaw set in a stubborn line. "No. What you need is to start listening to me. To start respecting me. Because if you don't, this ship isn't going to make it to the next port, let alone complete its mission." Xyloth hissed again, his tail lashing. "And what mission is that, human? To prove that your species is superior? To show us how advanced you are?" Steve's eyes narrowed. "No, Xyloth. To survive. That's all any of us are trying to do out here. But you're so caught up in your egos and your tech that you can't see the bigger picture. And that's why you need me. 'Cause I see it. I always have." The room fell silent, the weight of Steve's words hanging in the air like a storm cloud. For the first time, the aliens seemed to truly consider what he was saying. They had always viewed humans as primitive, as relics of a bygone era. But Steve had proven time and time again that there was more to his species than met the eye. Crix was the first to break the silence. Perhaps we have been too quick to judge. Your methods may be different, but they have saved us on more than one occasion. For that, we owe you our gratitude." Steve's expression softened, but only slightly. "Gratitude's nice, but what I really need is respect. And trust. If we're going to make it through this, we have to work together. As equals." Glorb pulsed thoughtfully. "You are right, Steve. We have been dismissive. And for that we apologize." The triplets nodded in agreement, their feathers rustling softly. "We will do better," they chorused. Xyloth, however, remained silent, his golden eyes fixed on Steve. Finally he let out a low hiss. "Very well, human. I will try to be more open to your suggestions. But do not mistake this for weakness." Steve smirked. "Wouldn't dream of it, Xyloth." The next few days passed in relative harmony. The crew made a concerted effort to include Steve in their discussions, to listen to his ideas, and to give him the respect he deserved. And for a while it seemed like things were finally turning around. But the universe, as always, had other plans. It started with a faint tremor in the ship's hull, barely noticeable at first. But within minutes, the tremor had grown into a violent shudder, shaking the Eclipse like a leaf in a hurricane. "Report!" Steve barked, gripping the console to steady himself. Crix's mandibles clicked furiously as he scanned the readouts. "Gravitational anomaly. It's pulling us in." Steve's mind raced. They were too close to a black hole, and if they didn't act fast, they'd be crushed into oblivion. "Xyloth, reroute all power to the engines. Glorb, stabilize the hull. Triplets, plot us a course out of here." The crew sprang into action, their earlier tensions forgotten in the face of imminent danger. But as the ship's systems groaned under the strain, it became clear that their usual methods weren't going to be enough. "Engines at 120% capacity," Xyloth shouted. "We can't sustain this." Steve clenched his fists, his mind racing. There had to be another way. And then it hit him. "Crix, shut down the artificial gravity. Glorb, divert all power from life support to the engines. We're going to slingshot out of here." The aliens stared at him in disbelief. "Are you insane?" Xyloth hissed. "We'll be crushed." "Not if we time it right," Steve said, his voice steady. "Trust me." For a moment no one moved. Then one by one they nodded. They had no other choice. The ship lurched as the artificial gravity disengaged, sending the crew floating weightlessly. Steve gripped the console, his eyes fixed on the readouts. "Now, Crix. Full thrust." The Eclipse shot forward, the engines roaring as they pushed the ship to its limits. The black hole's pull grew stronger, threatening to tear them apart. But just as it seemed like all was lost, the ship broke free, hurtling into the safety of open space. The crew cheered, their voices echoing through the ship. Steve slumped against the console, a grin spreading across his face. "Told you I had a plan." Xyloth floated over to him, his scales still rippling with adrenaline. "That was impressive, human. Perhaps we have underestimated you." Steve chuckled. "Yeah, well, don't let it go to your head. We're not out of the woods yet." As the crew worked to restore the ship systems, Steve couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. They had listened to him. They had trusted him. And together they had survived.